The following is an EWTN special presentation.
Well, today's panel, as you can see, is on the new evangelization. And I'm just going to briefly introduce our panelists, who are illustrious indeed. I mean, I feel like a complete idiot sitting next to this group, you know. I mean, so on that note, of course, Archbishop Gomez needs no introduction. He's just given us a very fine paper yesterday, and taking away that spirit of being created in the dignity and the image of God. And of course, Archbishop Nienstedt needs no introduction. A fantastic packed paper today, which I desperately want. And I would say that honestly, just a great sensitivity to the family and its role in the culture and the church's place in it. Archbishop Samuel Aquila, I have to tell you, I have heard several of his papers on religious liberty and on the area of pro-life. He is a very fine speaker, very systematic, very bright. You're going to enjoy his comments today. Bishop Morlino needs no introduction because, of course, he's been here in a couple of conferences. Started off as a Jesuit, I might add, a very fine thinker himself, and really a fine philosopher and theologian. And he has participated in the legal part of our conference, which was on Tuesday night and Wednesday. And then Bishop Vann is our new bishop in Orange County. Some of you heard him this morning speaking about the Christ Cathedral and what that's going to mean to the Diocese of Orange. I also just want to say Bishop Vann is truly a remarkably pastoral and effective man. He's been in Orange County a short amount of time, and wow, the results are amazing. So I just want to welcome all of you here, and thanks so much for participating in the panel. What we'll do is we'll begin with the pretty much the question everybody wants to know, and here we have this mandate we've been given by now two Holy Fathers to participate in the new evangelization, and the key question is, what do you consider to be the most important areas within the new evangelization that just simply have to be addressed for the sake of the church, for the sake of faith in our country and around the world, and for the sake, too, of our culture? And, it could range a variety of different things. It could certainly be the problem of agnosticism and atheism unbelief among our young people. Could certainly be the culture of life and death, and boy, that is a big problem. Moral relativism, as we've heard twice in papers over the last few days, is a key issue. Certainly proselytizing of Catholics by other religions, but there's so many issues, and I'm just curious, what are your priorities in your region? What do you think is most essential? And maybe we'll just start with Archbishop Gomez and maybe just proceed down the line and just get a sense of where people are. Lucky you.
Yeah. Thank you, Father Spitzer. Good morning to everyone.
Good morning.
I will say that for me, the most urgent need in the new evangelization is education in the faith. I think the biggest challenge that we have as Catholics is to really get to know our faith better. Just thinking of the basic idea that I was talking about yesterday, the dignity of the human person. We just take it for granted most of the time, and it's something that needs to be, as I said yesterday, talked about and explained to people. And that's just one little example. We can talk also about the social teachings of the church or the moral teachings of the church, every aspect of the life of the church. I think it is an urgent need to really find the way to educate ourselves and educate our people in the basic teachings of the church. I usually give an example that I learned from my good friend, Father Virgilio Elizondo, He was a professor at the University of Notre Dame, and he's a priest of the Archdiocese of San Antonio, and he was one time giving a class. I don't want to say where, because it may implicate myself. Anyway, he was giving a class, and he said at some point, as you know, this is something that is in the Gospels. So one of the ones attending the class raised his hand and said, "Father, what are the Gospels?" So Father Virgilio started questioning his whole presentation. And then he asked, have you heard about Jesus Christ? Because that was the level of understanding of God and the teachings of the church to that specific student. So that's a graphic example of why I think that it is important for us to really find a way to educate ourselves better in the teachings of the church, and also educate every single Catholic and our society in general about what the church teaches. Thank you.
Thank you. Archbishop Nienstedt?
I remember Cardinal Francis George saying early on when he became the Archbishop of Chicago, having an audience with the Holy Father, Blessed John Paul II, and he said, "You know, your Holy Father, Your Holiness, you keep talking about this new evangelization." He said, "What do you really have in mind when you talk about the new evangelization?" And Blessed John Paul II looked at him and said, "It is for the Holy Father to announce it and the bishops to define it." So I guess it's appropriate that we're here today. I think, consistent with the talk that I just gave, I was so very, very pleased to see that quote to the Pontifical Council on the Family from Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI, where he said, "The way of the new evangelization is the way of the family." Having just waged the battles unsuccessfully about the marriage amendment in Minnesota, we have for 2 years been engaged in this topic. And there's an awful lot of people who don't understand or who do not want to understand what marriage is about, either on a sacramental level, a natural level. They just don't seem to get it. And the quote that I mentioned, that 70% of our young people don't believe that same-sex persons should be excluded from the reality of marriage. We went through this whole thing, and I tell you that the level of emotion that this topic raises is extraordinary. It's almost impossible to get people to talk about it in a rational way. And I think that that's very disturbing. And as I tried to show, you know, there are all kinds of roots, contraception and pornography and all these, and the sexual revolution that have contributed to this, a whole warped sense of the rights that people have to do with what they want with their bodies. I think that that's very disturbing. And I think that we haven't even begun to posit what the critical results, the negative forces that are going to come from this. So I really agree with Pope Benedict in saying that it's the family is the way of the new evangelization. I think it starts there and branches out from there.
Thank you. Archbishop Aquila?
I just returned from World Youth Day, and I served as one of the catechist bishops there. And what I found interesting in terms of the new evangelization, and it reaffirms what has already been said, was that in all three groups, which included young people, not only from the United States, but from many countries in Africa, many countries in Asia, places like Pakistan and Indonesia, Malawi, and with them, in all three, questions on same-sex marriage and same-sex unions came up in the question and answer period. With the Africans, their question was, why is the United States forcing the homosexual culture on us? With the American young people, the questions were primarily around with what is wrong with same-sex acts. With some of the others, it was a whole question around the meaning of marriage. And as I listened to the questions, and one of them asked the question, what is your opinion on same-sex marriage? And when I saw the question, it really pointed to the moral relativism of the day and how the media has really fed in and is the one who is forming our young people. And as I listened to their questions and then responded to them, one could see the lights going on. And as I shared with them, it all has to do with the dignity of the human person, with theological anthropology. And I said, we won't even bring God into the equation at this point. I said, very simply, look at your body. And you know as well as I do that a man's body is made for a woman's, and a woman's body is made for a man. And I said, and I don't have to get graphic. And there were some smirks when I said that. But they all understood. And it's like, oh yeah, our bodies do reveal that. But I think one of the great gifts of Blessed John Paul II that still remains untapped is the theology of the body. And it really needs to be presented to our young people. It is deeply rooted in the Christian understanding of theological anthropology, of who we are made for. It builds the family, it builds marriage. And as I shared with the young people, a same-sex couple can never procreate. And many of these young people, probably 99.9% of them, had never heard of the three goods of marriage, of fidelity, lifelong commitment, and procreation. And as I shared with them, when you pull out procreation, you can really justify anything, whether it's contraception, whether it is same-sex acts, whether it is masturbation, whatever. And the young people really began to respond to that. They saw how and began to see the connections that needed to be made, and many of them came from broken families, many of them came from different struggles, but until we, and by that I mean we as bishops and also the clergy and the faithful and the laity, begin to respond in a coherent way and a reasonable way to really lead our people into an understanding of our faith and into the understanding of the human person, and particularly in the whole area of moral relativism, because the society and the media are all people who really have embraced relativism and say there is no objective truth. And so helping our people to see that there is objective truth and recognizing objective truth, and that even those who say there is no objective truth believe in objective truth, and helping them to come to recognize that. And so there's many challenges to the new evangelization, and urgent needs in proclaiming the gospel. And certainly, as Pope Francis has said so often, it needs to be done with charity and love, and that will change the hearts of people and bring them to understand the great gift that is given to us in Jesus Christ and in our Catholic faith.
Thank you. Bishop Morlino?
Yes, I couldn't agree more with the great brother bishops who are up here. And I would say I spend the lion's share of my time trying to teach and form in precisely the way that they've been mentioning, and also in setting up structures that will make this available one-to-one, up close and personal in the parishes. When I'm able to deal with people one-to-one, sometimes it usually is as a result of a letter that's not exactly a friendly letter. But if I can find a shred of reason in that letter, I'll invite the person in for a conversation. If it's just name calling, I know I'm fat. So that doesn't make for a productive conversation. I'm distracted as much by that monitor as I was last year. But anyway, when I talk to someone, say about their issue is same-sex union, when we talk one-on-one, I can try to move to the core of things, the two things that are really clear to me is that evangelization is not a program. It's a way of life. And that's what brother priests have been saying. And it really starts with that real personal experience of meeting Jesus Christ, risen from the dead, in such a way that he changes your life. Now, I'm with Pope Francis, I'm not one to judge persons and their souls, but I am someone who can judge actions. And frequently the people who come to me have not been changed at all by a meeting with Jesus Christ. I haven't been changed by that meeting as much as I should be. But they come and they want to engage the argument. Let's convince me that same-sex union. Well, I believe in apologetics and I believe in that kind of formation. But what I usually say is, have you met Jesus Christ, risen from the dead in a personal way that has changed your life? And I've had people say to me, Bishop, thank you very much, I just don't talk that way. And they want to excuse themselves. But the majority of those people get a little bit mystified. What's that all about? Are you serious? And I think that's where it all begins. And in order to do that, we have to give the best witness that we can give. Each of us has strengths in the way he or she gives witness. I am not a great witness to fasting, as I just said, but I can witness to a lot of other things. But we have to witness in the best way that we can about that meeting with Christ and about how that's at the center of our lives, and that being with him matters more than anything else. And I think that's where it starts.
Thank you, Bishop Morlino. Bishop Vann?
Just following on Bishop Morlino's reflection, I got a similar letter one time, and it wasn't hostile or anything, so I thought, well, so I just picked the phone up and called this person. I'm sort of want to do that, as some of the folks know. And there was this silence. You mean you're calling me? I said, well, sure. Why don't you come in and we can talk about this? And that made a big difference in this one individual. One of the things that concerns me is that, we travel a lot, and I've met a lot of meetings, and I've been in a lot of meetings recently, and over the years, and just about everyone is respectful and talks about their faith and Father, how can you help me in that? But what concerns me is, I think, an indifference that I find really pretty widespread. Oh, well, Father, I go to Mass maybe twice a month, or Bishop, well, I go here, and I'm still looking, and the level of engagement's low because it doesn't seem to make a big difference in their life. And when that is present, then the folks are much more susceptible to embracing the cultural ideas of what it is, or saying how wonderful something like the Da Vinci Code is. Something attracts them, but their faith doesn't anymore. So how, in this age, do we kind of re-engage them again? So indifference doesn't lead to all these other sorts of difficulties in embracing spiritualities and all this. I met an individual one time that said, "Oh, Father, I'm a retired Catholic." Retired, huh? I said, "Well, that's interesting." I said, "My mother came out of retirement twice. Can you do that?" So all these kind of excuses and justifications for disengagement from the faith community. But it's not hostility, it's just indifference. Faith or their relationship with Christ doesn't mean anything anymore. So we as pastors have to find a way to kind of get them on fire again for their faith.
Well, thank you very much. We've certainly heard range of responses, from education to family to the personal encounter with Jesus Christ, and to the theological anthropology, especially theology of the body, and of course the idea of trying to make faith more significant in our lives. I think these are real challenges. And I just, a second question that just occurs to me is, have you seen some of these new organizations, or maybe old organizations, that are sort of taking on a new mission, kind of a restored mission to try and respond to the 5 challenges that we've heard about right here, the urgent needs we've heard about right here? I mean, whether it be Focus, or whether it be the Catholic Association for Latino Leaders, whether it be, the Augustine Institute, some of the fine, younger universities that are now truly giving rise to so many vocations. Are there associations, or there movements, are there new organizations or old organizations with a new mission that you see as particularly important and prominent, that we would want to encourage to try and move forward with the needs that you've already elucidated for the new evangelization? And maybe we'll just start in the middle this time and perhaps go to Archbishop Aquila first.
Thank you. Certainly, within the Archdiocese of Denver, we are extremely blessed with many movements, and certainly the impact of Blessed John Paul II's visit there in 1993 for World Youth Day totally changed the face of the church in Denver, and it really ignited the faith within the Archdiocese and well beyond that. And there are many, many different groups, and certainly the ecclesial movements have helped to revitalize the faith. One of them that I want to speak to is first the Institute for Priestly Formation. It was begun by 4 persons. 3 of them were priests, and one was a consecrated laywoman, whose vision was to really help seminarians and to help the clergy enter into personal relationship with Jesus Christ, to truly encounter Christ. Because if our priests are not truly in love with Jesus and have a personal relationship with the Father, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit, and live in communion with the 3 persons, we're never going to pass that fire on to our people. And so they have developed a 10-week program during the summers, and then also conferences and all of that, that they have to help people to really encounter Christ. And that personal encounter, when we look at the Gospels, and when we see the Samaritan woman, when we see Zacchaeus, when we see Peter, when we see Paul, when we see the woman caught in adultery, all of them encounter in a personal way Jesus and receive his love and then return his love. And so that encounter, especially for clergy, religious, is absolutely essential, and the Institute for Priestly Formation has really touched the lives of hundreds of seminarians and priests and bishops within the United States, and we're extremely blessed to have them. Also with the Christian life movement, the Sodalicium Christiana Vitae, they are an ecclesial movement within the church that began in Lima, Peru, and they have spread pretty much throughout the world, and particularly though in South America and Central America, the United States. And they too, in their outreach, have created tremendous ways of reaching not only young people, but also serving the poor. And I can remember one time visiting in Lima when we were first bringing them up to Denver, and one of them was driving me, and I was reading the signs in Spanish as we entered into this one area, and there were all these warning signs up of, enter at your own risk, you are going into an area that is very dangerous, there is no police presence here, and it was one of the areas where the Christian life movement had gone and essentially set up a soup kitchen and began to evangelize. The violence in the area was tremendous, and I'm looking, should I really be going in here with you guys? They said, oh, as long as you're with us, you'll be fine, Bishop, don't worry. And it was, but it gives witness to Christ, and it invites people to a deeper relationship with the Lord. Also recently started in the last 4 years is Christ in the City. And that program too is a program working with the homeless where college kids essentially give up a year of their life. They live very poorly and simply, and they go out and feed the hungry in the parks of Denver. And that too is going to expand this year, going to other dioceses. But the stories that the young people can tell about their encounter with the homeless is incredible, what happens. And one young woman shared with me how there was a disheveled homeless man who, showed up and showed up and showed up every day, was fed, and they gave him, lunch, and then would talk with him about Jesus and that God loves him. And he disappeared for about 2 weeks. And he showed up fully cleaned, fully dressed, and they looked at him and said, what happened to you? And he said, I'm just coming back to thank you because you are the first people who ever told me that I am loved by God and that I am a child of God and that Jesus loves me. So I went out and I found a job, and I'm working now. That's great. And, something that you look at something like that is that simple. It broke the man out of the cycle of self-hatred, out of the cycle of homelessness, out of the cycle of poverty, very simply because he heard the good news. Jesus loves me. I am a son of God. And that is a message that we need to proclaim. And certainly there are many others doing that. The Fellowship of Catholic University students, I cannot say enough about in terms of seeing what they have done, and so many other different ecclesial movements. But there is tremendous hope out there, and very honestly, I have to say, my hope is in the young people, because the young people have seen the brokenness, they have seen the relativism, And when their hearts are caught on fire and they discover the love of Jesus for them and their true dignity, they're on fire to go and spread it. And so there is tremendous hope out there in the midst of the darkness. And I think that in very concrete ways can we implement that within our own diocese, but it begins in very small ways and then grows tremendously. And we can see that in the Fellowship of Catholic University students and the Augustine Institute and so many other ways that we are blessed as a church. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bishop Vann?
I could talk about that a little bit, about where I am and where I was. For those of you who were at the breakfast this morning, I believe the Diocese of Orange, now with the new Christ Cathedral, furnishes us now many, many unique opportunities for evangelization and for witnessing and for welcome. Just the presence of the cathedral campus there alone, it's so visible in Garden Grove. And then what we can offer there in terms of welcome, worship, art, music, the Catholic imagination, service and outreach to the poor, and in all the many and myriad ways that we're doing that now. So that's a unique place for us now to be able to do this in Orange. Personally, I have found, like some of us had, I started at the prodding of my priest secretary in Fort Worth. I started a weblog, and then I've started a Twitter post, and I keep these up with some regularity, but I find that a place where I can really teach and really engage people. And then I run across them later on that said they liked what I said or something. So that's one thing. Where I was in Texas, one of the last things I was able to do was I was able to invite Focus in to be part of a brand new parish, Blessed John Paul II on the campus of the University of North Texas. And even right after they got there, the fire that those young people brought to them, to this campus. Then I would kind of go back to my years in Texas and talk of another way. It's perhaps a more traditional way, but it made a difference. And I say this with great love and great respect. When I arrived in Fort Worth, I found several parishes, a number of them, but at least 3 of them, big ones, that had wonderful people mission there, but it was with what I call alternative methods of parish staffing. It was done with goodwill. And, Archbishop Gomez knows some of this story, because he was a big help to me. But these were big parishes, so every time I was there, I thought, there's just something kind of missing here, even with all the goodwill that was here. So when it was possible, at the right time, when I could do a change, I put resident pastors in 3 of these big places. And they exploded after that. And then really became a great center of life and parish activity and evangelization, making a huge difference in the neighborhoods around them. So that's one sort of a more traditional way, but a practical way that with the help of so many others, was able to deal with that in Texas. So.
Thank you so much. Bishop Nienstedt?
Well, in addition to the Focus College missionaries that we have in my archdiocese, we also have our own program called the St. Paul's Outreach, which are college students ministering to other college students. We also have what we call net ministries, which are college-age students who minister to high school-age students. And I think the genius behind this is that you have peers talking to peers. You and I are at an age where a lot of young people, they might listen to us and tolerate us, but oftentimes we don't make the impact. But if you have a peer talking to a peer with their own language and using their own examples, I think it is much more effective. I was very pleased 2 years ago, a number of our seminarians in our theologate decided that during Holy Week they would go out 2 by 2 and spend 3 whole days on the University of Minnesota's campus. And they just engaged people, asking them what they believed in. Had they heard of Jesus Christ? And out of the 250-some people that had been engaged, only one young lady said she wasn't interested in talking. They had Bibles and they had other literature there. They had cards for the Newman Center on the campus so that if anyone wanted to follow up, they could. And so these kinds of initiatives, I think, are, it's already been said, are really very powerful because they are young people talking to other young people. So if we can encourage them in that and get them to a point where they feel confident in their faith. Also, I believe that the traditional organization of the Knights of Columbus and the Council of Catholic Women, we really depended upon these two organizations when we were engaged in supporting the marriage amendment in Minnesota. And so many of these people who might have joined these organizations just for social reasons, they've really stepped up to the plate, and they've been witnessing their faith in rather dramatic ways. So I do see a lot of good out there happening, but the challenges are still there.
Bishop Morlino?
Yes, in Wisconsin, and especially in the city of Madison, there's a very strong women's liberation lobby and also a very strong gay lobby. And it interested me that Pope Francis made the distinction saying that he wouldn't judge someone who was gay with goodwill, having a goodwill, wanting to live chastely. He would never judge that person, but he said gay lobbies are bad. What those things are all about, though, women's liberation movements and gay lobbies, they're all about gender identity. And one of the things that I think we need to recover is the ability of women to be truly like Christ as women, not as men almost, but really as women. Someone said recently on television that a woman's motherhood is restricted by maternity, that a woman's womanhood is restricted by womanhood. That's what that almost comes down to. And Pope Francis is so strong on saying that for the woman, fertility is what it's all about. Not only physical, but especially spiritual fertility. And he says to married women, be mothers. And he said recently to religious sisters from all over the world, be mothers. Let your fertility be spiritually fertile and bear forth many children. So anyway, in that spirit, we've got a wonderful homegrown operation now in the diocese, which is called the Knights of Divine Mercy. And it's aimed at helping guys be proud to be real good guys, real men, rather than apologizing for their masculinity. And there's been too much apologizing for masculinity in our country, and there's been too much apologizing for real femininity. You know, when stay-at-home moms have to apologize all over the place on television for being stay-at-home moms, or they have to be demeaned by politicians for being stay-at-home moms, that's a terrible thing. So what I would like to see, we have the Knights of Divine Mercy. We have for young people the Dead Theologian Society. Maybe you've heard of that. That's founded in Wisconsin. It's for young people studying the lives of the saints. And the guys study the male saints and the women study the female saints. So as to see how femininity or masculinity is integrated in Christ. What I've got to do now is get something that's like the Knights of Divine Mercy for women. That's one of the things we're working on starting. We found that our young people, generally, young women don't gravitate toward the Diocesan Council of Catholic Women. And that's not a criticism, they just don't go there. And most of the young men don't go to the Knights of Columbus, which is a shame. And we do have a wonderful Council of the Knights of Columbus on campus at the University of Wisconsin-Madison that does great work. But if young men don't go there, they somehow don't go near the Knights. We have problems like that. But anyway, we're working on something that would be comparable to the Knights of Divine Mercy for women. The other organization, of course, that's national is Estovir for men. That means in Latin, be a man. And it's a wonderful organization, and I've been associated with them different places in Wisconsin and elsewhere. So I think as we try to get people to meet Jesus Christ risen from the dead, he is going to want to call forth the best out of their masculinity or out of their femininity. And in this culture, that's not such an easy thing to do. So I'm focused to a certain extent on that, to a great extent on that.
Thank you. Well, I gave Archbishop Gomez a break, so I do want to get him in before our last question. Thank you for the time alert.
So briefly, I think all of these wonderful organizations are just a manifestation of the active participation of the lay people in the life of the church. That, in a sense, was especially called by the Second Vatican Council with the universal call to holiness. So I think there is a lot of hope, and it is wonderful to see so many organizations and movements that are so active in the life of the church now. Then I have an organization that could be useful for Bishop Morlino in reaching out to women. Most of you know Endow. Endow is a wonderful organization that started in the Archdiocese of Denver, and is precisely education on the nature and dignity of women. And they have chapters in many cities in the United States. So, Bishop Morlino, that will be useful for you.
Absolutely, they are terrific.
And then I know that time is over, but there are a good number of organizations that are reaching out to Latinos and to Vietnamese and Filipinos and all different ethnic groups. So I think it is important for us also to keep in mind that we have to integrate all the different ethnic communities in the life of the church. Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you. Well, we have 10 minutes for our last question, so I guess we're going to have to do a 2-minute flash by. But I do think it's an important question concerning how do we take, the Holy Spirit's so active, as Archbishop Gomez just pointed out, and the lay people are certainly moving, having effectiveness, and especially the young people. How can we, as church members, church leaders, and also sponsors of all these movements and leaders in the congregations, how can we facilitate, bringing not only these things together, but getting these great movements into just every diocese we can? What can we do to sort of take something that sprang up in Denver or Los Angeles and get it over to everywhere across the diocese? How do we facilitate that in some reasonable way? And I hate to put Archbishop Nienstedt on the spot, but maybe I'll just begin with you, Archbishop.
In our archdiocese, we began last October a new evangelization program for the whole archdiocese. We call it the Rediscover Initiative. And at Christmas time, we gave out 186,000 copies of Matthew Kelly's book, Rediscover Catholicism. We followed that up with over 500 book study clubs in the various parishes, getting people to get together and to read a chapter a month or a week. One really fine example of the good that has come out of this is that when they got to that chapter that Kelly talks about confession, he talks about getting your car washed and how careful you are for the first week or so after you've washed your car. But then things begin to go downhill. And you throw things in the back seat, and it's really a very classic presentation. Well, the people who were in this particular study club, they started talking to one another about the last time they'd been to confession, and most of them had found out that it had been 10, 12, 15 years. So they said, well, why don't we all go together to the next penance service, and we'll go separately, but we'll support one another. I think this is what we have to do. We have to reach people where they are. And so those kinds of, you can go to our website for the Archdiocese, and it's the Rediscover initiative. And there also is a free app that you can download on your iPhone or your iPad that gives you all the themes that are running through. But somehow it seems to me that we need, as Archbishop Gomez said before, we need to begin to educate people on the most basic level, because people are embarrassed when they begin to speak about the faith, or somebody asks them about the faith and they don't know what to say. One of the things I wrote about when I began this initiative, I said that we should all have a 3-minute elevator speech ready to give if somebody asks us about our faith. And then we should probably have a little longer one over cocktails, maybe 5 minutes or 6 minutes of explaining, why do I believe in the faith? And where have I encountered Jesus Christ? And what does this mean for my life in a very practical way on a day-to-day basis? I think those are the kinds of things that we need to do to get the ball rolling in terms of a lot of good things happening in the church, but there's also a lot of people who haven't been touched yet, and we have a lot of work to do.
And I think we'd like to bring a lot of those programs right into our dioceses as well. Bishop Morlino?
I agree very much with Archbishop Nienstedt that the people are the best way to spread the good news about so many things. And I'm really grateful. I mean, the internet has many drawbacks and dangers about it, but it is possible to Google just about anything. And you can Google Knights of Divine Mercy. You can Google the Archdiocese of Minneapolis-St. Paul, the Rediscovery Program. We have just an example of how word spreads. We have a priest, the founder of the Knights of Divine Mercy, who is now into 24/7 confessions. And he has a special chapel that I authorized in his rectory, and the whole place is extremely secure, including where he comes to hear the confession. But he is available whenever he's home. If he's home in the middle of the night, he's available in the middle of the night. And people can only confess through the screen in the night and so on for security reasons. But he actually has an app where you can hit the app, go find out whether or not he's home, and then tell him you're coming. And there's been an incredible response to that, not only from people, but from priests who look at the network in other dioceses saying, I'd really like to, move in that direction. And there's so much out there, and I think the internet is a key to it. So that's all I have to say, but I think the things are great.
Oh, thank you. Archbishop Aquila?
One of the things that comes to mind for me is that in this year of faith that Pope Emeritus Benedict the 16th called is really the challenge for all of us to deepen our faith in Jesus Christ and our personal relationship with the Lord. And I think that that is a call that needs to be heard by each and every one of us in terms of how do we give witness to Jesus Christ, and then with that to his church, to the Catholic Church, and to really helping to promote the gospel and inviting others back into the faith. That conversion isn't something that just happens once, within one's life, but all of us are continuing to be converted. Certainly, I would hope that when you look at your own life, that you would be able to say where I am today is much different than where I was 10, 15, 20 years ago. And then how do you carry that over into your own families, into the workplace, into society, into the political public square, and so forth? Because we as bishops can only do so much, and it's really up to the laity to transform culture. And it is one of the most unheard of points of the Second Vatican Council, or unreceived points, I should say, that has really, that the laity, certainly some laity have taken it up, but many laity have just put it on the back burner. And we can see that with certainly some of the Catholics who are in politics, who their faith does not influence anything that they do or say. And so it is, I think, beginning for all of us to look at the renewal of our own faith and the deepening of our faith, and then the living it out in the world, that we can begin to call others into relationship with the Lord. And there are so many different ways, and certainly the internet can do that when it is used for the good and visiting. But it's essential that each of us enter into that encounter and know that it's just not a one-year program, but it's a lifelong journey of faith. And so a program can be done, and all of us have been involved in different programs and that kind of thing, but it's only when our hearts are captured by Christ that we truly then begin to go out and just begin one person at a time until that continues to mushroom and grow.
Thank you so much, Archbishop Gomez.
Thank you. I have 20 seconds?
Actually, he's got what he needs.
Last time. Oh, I was thinking that maybe what we need is a national flash mob. Seriously, I think when we just following what my brother Bishop said, that we need to be more active in talking about the good things that the Catholic Church, that all of us are trying to do in our country. We have to invest time and resources to really communicate and get across all the wonderful things that we are doing for the social ministries of the church, in education, information, in so many wonderful things, and we really need to be more active in doing that.
I'm just going to follow up on that comment in a moment, but I just wanted to get the last comment from Bishop Vann.
Two things I'd say: be attentive to competition and use the Catholic imagination. First one, I was involved in family life ministry many years ago in Springfield as a parish priest, and as I was trying to promote natural family planning, I found a lot of competition between the different schools of that, different approaches, and you all know this. In fact, they would even fight with each other, really, and kind of say, well, I'm the best. You know, and you all know that if you've been involved in this. Huh? And when we're trying to promote openness to life, the different schools have to work together. So all these different movements are blessings in this day and age, and we're at a very different point in time. So to make sure that we understand that whatever movement we're a part of, or that we're working with, or whatever folks are, they're part of the whole big picture, and we need everybody in this effort. Just a brief point. The chancellor of Orange, Cheryl Giacomi, said to me, we need to engage the neo-catechumenal way. And, you know, and she was right. And not just leave them all out there. I invited them in for several series of meetings, and so they invited me to do this Misión de Pascua. So I had 2,000 people on a Saturday, the Saturday after Easter, when I commissioned 80 missionaries, and 2,000 people there, and they all went out preaching and shopping in the shopping center parking lots and everything, and then going door to door. Well, if I had kind of ignored them, you see? So there's a place for everybody in all these movements in the life of the church in promoting the gospel. And then secondly, to use the Catholic imagination, which we have a long history of, really. When I was writing for my weblog and for the diocesan paper, when I knew the marriage decision was coming down, I thought, how can I respond to this? If I write a typical marriage column, nobody's going to read it. So what I decided to do was to write a tribute to my mother and father. And some of you may have seen this. I put it on my weblog in the diocesan paper. My mother's first anniversary was coming up of her death. So I had a picture of them when they were newly married and then in later years. And I wrote about how they taught us what marriage as a sacrament really was and how they lived that reality out. And that's what marriage is and what each of them did. Being the oldest of the 6 of us, I could remember all that. So I use that as a tool to teach this is what marriage truly is given to us by God.
You could just see how the Holy Spirit is so active in everything that the bishops have been bringing up. You can certainly see what's going on with these new movements in the church. It's just tremendous. What we really need is a clearinghouse. I don't know if the USCCB should be the clearinghouse or whether we just get a clearinghouse and try to get a stamp of approval from the USCCB. But I think there are really about 50 fantastic, ecclesial movements that are taking place, and then some real startup ones that are really great too, an additional group of them. And it'd be nice just to have a clearinghouse where we could just get a techno-whiz who could kind of put this together, complete with apps, computer programs, and secondly, to have a new ecclesial movements whiz to kind of give descriptions, give clues as to how to get it started in your parish or your diocese. Something like that would be really, I think, just what we need to do to coordinate. And I think we can then have, some sort of a transfer of information and so forth. I know there are people out there who are genuinely capable of pulling this off. I would certainly, be willing to give some of my time and energy to visionary prospects, but I'm not the techno-whiz. But the key thought is, I do think Archbishop Gomez is onto something. I think this clearinghouse is really needed, and if the USCCB is the place to put it, then my thought is, let it be so, because I just think it'll enhance the work of the Spirit that's already so dynamic. I just want to thank all of our archbishops and bishops, our panelists today, for all of these really great ideas and testimony to the faith. Thank you.